Get out. I will not allow a liar to stay in my son's house.
Mama, Daniel, it's raining. That child is not...
better if you leave tonight.
My baby, forgive your mother. I tried my best. Where do we go now? It's okay. Mama will protect you.
Tasha, please, can you come pick me up, please, or kick me out? I have nowhere else to go.
Desperate message. Wrong number, but something feels strange. You sent this to the wrong person. But tell me, are you safe?
The door slammed so hard it shook the walls. Get out of my house. My mother-in-law's voice cut through the night like a knife. I stumbled backward, my hand instinctively gripping my swollen belly as pain shot through my lower back. My suitcase landed beside me on the wet pavement. Please, it's raining, I said, my voice shaking. At least let me stay until morning. Not another second, she snapped. You think you can trap my son with that baby? My heart dropped. Behind her stood my husband, Daniel. He didn't move. He didn't say a word. Daniel, I whispered, turning to him. Please tell her the truth. He avoided my eyes. The silence felt louder than the storm. My mother-in-law laughed bitterly. Look at you begging. A shameless woman carrying a child that isn't even my son's. That's not true. I cried. You know that's not true. She stepped closer, her eyes full of cold hatred. You think I'm stupid, she said. Ever since you came into this house, nothing but trouble followed. I could feel tears mixing with the rain on my face. Daniel, I pleaded again. Say something. He finally spoke, but his voice was quiet. Maybe, it's better if you leave for now. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Leave? I repeated. Yes, he said. Just until things calm down. His mother smirked. Oh, she's not coming back, she said. Then she slammed the door in my face. The lock clicked. And just like that, I was homeless. 8 months pregnant. In the middle of the night. The rain kept falling. I stood there for several minutes, staring at the door that used to welcome me home. 2 years. 2 years of marriage. 2 years of trying to be the perfect wife. And this was how it ended. I slowly picked up my suitcase and walked to the sidewalk. The street was almost empty. The cold wind made me shiver, and the baby kicked inside my belly as if sensing my fear. It's okay, I whispered softly, rubbing my stomach. Mama's here. But the truth was, I had no idea what to do. My parents lived in another state. My closest friend, Tasha, lived across town. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone. I typed quickly. Tasha, please can you come pick me up? I have nowhere to go. They kicked me out. My vision blurred with tears as I pressed send. I sat down on the curb and hugged my belly. Just hold on, baby, I murmured. Help is coming. Across the city, in a quiet high-rise office overlooking the glowing skyline, a man sat alone. The room was dark except for the city lights reflecting against the glass walls. Kang Jae-Min leaned back in his chair, staring at the files on his desk. It had been another long night of meetings, negotiations, and decisions that controlled millions of dollars. Most people knew him as a billionaire businessman. But the truth was far more complicated. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it absent-mindedly. Unknown number. He was about to ignore it when the preview of the message appeared. Tasha, please can you come pick me up? I have nowhere to go. They kicked me out. Jae-Min frowned. Wrong number. He almost put the phone down. But something about the message bothered him. It sounded desperate. He picked up the phone again and typed. You have the wrong number. He hesitated for a moment before adding another line. Are you safe? Then he sent it. Back on the street, my phone buzzed. I quickly wiped my tears and looked at the screen. My heart sank. Wrong number. Oh no, I muttered. Embarrassed, I typed quickly. I'm sorry. I meant to send that to my friend. A few seconds later, another message appeared. Why were you kicked out? I stared at the phone. Why did this stranger care? But somehow, that simple question made my chest tighten. Because no one else had asked. Not even my husband. I looked up at the dark sky and sighed. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe talking to a stranger would help. So I typed, "My mother-in-law thinks the baby I'm carrying isn't her son's. She convinced him to kick me out tonight." The typing dots appeared almost immediately. Then the reply came. "And you're pregnant?" I hesitated before answering. 8 months. There was a long pause. I wondered if he had finally decided to ignore me. Then another message appeared. "Where are you?" I frowned. Why would he ask that? Still, the street felt colder by the minute. So I sent my location. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The rain slowed to a drizzle. I was starting to regret sending my location when headlights appeared at the end of the street. A sleek black luxury car slowly pulled over in front of me. My heart started racing. The back door opened. A tall man stepped out holding an umbrella. He walked toward me with calm, confident steps. Even in the dim streetlight, I could tell he was strikingly handsome. Sharp jawline, dark hair, cold but intelligent eyes. He stopped a few feet away. "You're the one who sent the message?" he asked. His voice was deep and steady. I nodded slowly. "Yes." He looked at my belly, then at the suitcase beside me. His expression hardened. "Who threw you out?" he asked. "My husband's mother," I whispered. "And your husband?" I swallowed. "He chose her." For a moment, the man didn't say anything. Then he turned slightly toward the driver. "Open the car." The driver immediately stepped out and opened the back door. The man looked back at me. "You shouldn't be outside in your condition," he said calmly. I blinked in confusion. "Wait, are you the one I texted?" "Yes. But I don't even know you." He gave a small shrug. "Tonight you do." I hesitated. Every warning my mother had ever given me about strangers flashed through my mind. But then another sharp pain shot through my lower back. I winced. The man noticed immediately. "Are you in labor?" he asked. I don't know." His expression became serious. "Get in the car." Something about his tone made it impossible to argue. I slowly stood up and climbed into the back seat. The leather seats were warm. The door closed. The man sat across from me. For the first time, I got a proper look at his face. He looked powerful. The kind of man people listen to without question. "Thank you," I said quietly. He studied me for a moment before speaking. "My name is Kang Jae-Min." I nodded politely. "I'm Amara." He leaned back slightly. "So, Amara, tell me something." "What? Why did you trust a stranger enough to send your location?" I looked down at my belly. Then I answered honestly. "Because tonight, I had no one else." For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not pity. Something deeper. "Driver," he said calmly. "Yes, sir. Take us home." The car moved silently through the rain-soaked streets. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. I sat quietly, clutching my belly, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside me. Across from me, Kang Jae-Min watched the city lights pass by the window. Something about him felt different. Not just rich. Powerful. The kind of quiet power that didn't need to prove itself. Finally, he spoke. "Are you hungry?" The question surprised me. I blinked. "What?" "You've been sitting in the rain for at least an hour," he said calmly. "You must be hungry." I thought about it for a moment. The truth was, I hadn't eaten since the afternoon. My mother-in-law had started another argument during dinner, accusing me of trying to poison the house with my presence. The food had gone cold while she yelled. "I guess, a little," I admitted. Jae-Min nodded slightly. "Driver, stop by the restaurant." "Yes, sir." Within minutes the car pulled up outside a quiet late-night restaurant. Before I could even reach for the door, the driver stepped out and opened it. The cold air hit my face again. Jae-Min stepped out beside me, holding an umbrella over both of us. Come, he said. Inside, the restaurant was warm and softly lit. The staff immediately bowed slightly when they saw him. Good evening, Mr. Kang. So they knew him. Very well. We sat at a quiet table near the window. A waiter quickly brought hot tea and a menu. But Jae-Min didn't even look at it. Bring her something warm, he said. Soup, rice, and fruit. Yes, sir. I stared at him. You didn't even ask what I wanted. He glanced at my belly. At 8 months pregnant, warm soup is better than fried food. I couldn't help smiling slightly. You sound like a doctor. No, he said calmly. Just observant. The food arrived quickly. The moment the soup touched my lips, I realized how hungry I really was. I ate slowly at first, then faster. Jae-Min watched quietly. You eat like someone who hasn't had a peaceful meal in a while, he said. I laughed weakly. That obvious? Yes. I wiped my mouth with a napkin and sighed. I'm sorry you had to see me like this. Crying in the rain and begging strangers for help. You weren't begging, he said firmly. I looked up. You were asking for help. There's a difference. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. No one had defended me like that before. Finally, I asked the question that had been sitting in my mind. Why did you come? He raised an eyebrow. You mean why did I drive across the city for a stranger? Yes. He took a sip of his tea before answering. Because the message sounded real. What do you mean? I receive many messages, he said. Business offers, invitations, requests for money. He leaned back slightly. But desperation has a different tone. My chest tightened. You believed me? Yes. That simple word almost made me cry again. After I finished eating, we returned to the car. The rain had completely stopped now. The city lights reflected beautifully off the wet roads. 20 minutes later, the car slowed down as it approached a large iron gate. 2 security guards stepped forward immediately. The moment they saw the car, they opened the gate without question. I stared out the window in shock. The driveway stretched through a huge garden filled with carefully trimmed trees and glowing lantern lights. At the end stood a massive modern mansion. Glass walls. Stone pillars. Soft golden lights glowing from inside. Wait. I whispered. You live here? Yes. The car stopped at the entrance. Before I could even open the door, 2 house staff members appeared. Welcome home, Mr. Kang. They bowed slightly. Their eyes briefly shifted to me, curious but respectful. I suddenly felt very out of place. My clothes were wet. My hair was messy. And here I was standing in front of what looked like a palace. I shouldn't come inside like this, I said nervously. Jae-Min looked at me as if the thought was ridiculous. You're soaked and pregnant, he said. Of course you're coming inside. I hesitated. This house looks expensive. He gave a faint smile. It is. Then I definitely shouldn't. Amara, he interrupted calmly. Yes. Stop overthinking. He turned toward the staff. Prepare a guest room. And call the doctor. Yes, sir. I blinked. Doctor. Yes. I'm fine. Maybe, he said. But I prefer to be sure. The inside of the mansion was even more breathtaking. The ceilings were high. The floors were polished marble. A beautiful chandelier hung above the main hall like something from a movie. One of the staff members guided me upstairs. This way, ma'am. The room they showed me was bigger than the entire apartment Daniel and I used to live in. Soft white sheets. Large windows overlooking the garden. A warm bath already running. Mr. Kang asked us to prepare this for you, the woman said kindly. I felt overwhelmed. Thank you. She smiled before leaving the room. For a moment, I just stood there. Everything felt unreal. Just a few hours ago, I had been sitting in the rain with nowhere to go. Now I was standing in a luxury mansion. Because of a text message sent to the wrong number. An hour later, after a warm bath and fresh clothes, I slowly walked downstairs. The living room was quiet. Jae-Min was sitting on a sofa, reading something on his tablet. He looked up when he saw me. "You look better." "I feel better," I admitted. He gestured toward the sofa. "Sit," he said carefully. "Thank you again," I said, "for everything tonight." He studied me for a moment. "Tell me something honestly." "Okay. Are you planning to go back to that house?" The thought alone made my stomach twist. "No," I said quietly. "Good." I frowned slightly. That was quick. He shrugged. A man who throws his pregnant wife out in the rain doesn't deserve a second chance. I couldn't argue with that. Just then, a man in a white coat entered the room. "Good evening, Mr. Kang." "The doctor," Jae-Min said. The doctor examined me carefully. After checking my blood pressure and listening to the baby's heartbeat, he smiled. "Both mother and baby are healthy," he said. I sighed in relief. But the doctor added one more thing. However, she should avoid stress for the next few weeks. Jae-Min nodded. Understood. After the doctor left, the room fell quiet again. Then Jae-Min spoke. "You can stay here." I looked up in shock. "What?" "Until the baby is born." My eyes widened. "That's too much." "No," he said calmly. "It's the right thing. But you don't even know me." "That's true. So why would you trust me in your house?" He leaned back slightly. "Because I trust my instincts." "And what do they say?" He looked directly at me. "They say you're not the problem." For the first time that night, I felt safe. But what I didn't know yet was that Kang Jae-Min was far more dangerous than he seemed. And my mother-in-law was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight pouring through the tall windows. For a few seconds, I didn't remember where I was. The bed was soft. The room smelled faintly of lavender. Then everything came rushing back. The rain. The door slamming. Daniel's silence. And the stranger who had taken me in. Kang Jae-Min. I slowly sat up, placing a hand on my belly. "Good morning, little one," I whispered. The baby kicked gently. I smiled for the first time in days. After getting dressed, I walked downstairs. The house was already alive with quiet movement. Staff members moved through the hallways, preparing breakfast. One of them greeted me warmly. "Good morning, ma'am." "Good morning," I replied, still feeling slightly awkward being called that. "Mr. Kang is in the dining room." I nodded and followed her directions. When I entered, Jae-Min was sitting at a large table reading a newspaper. He looked up when he saw me. "Good morning, Amara." "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in weeks," I admitted. He nodded toward the chair across from him. "Sit. You need breakfast." The table was already filled with food. Rice, eggs, fruit, soup. I stared at it. "This is too much." He shrugged. "Pregnant women need energy." I laughed softly. "You really do act like a doctor." He smirked slightly. "Eat." Halfway through breakfast, my phone started ringing. My heart skipped when I saw the name. Daniel. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Jae-Min noticed immediately. "Your husband?" "Yes." "Are you going to answer?" I hesitated. Then I pressed the green button. "Hello. Amara." Daniel's voice sounded panicked. "Where are you?" "I'm safe," I said calmly. "Safe where?" "I came outside this morning and you were gone." I almost laughed. "You noticed I was gone?" "Of course I did." "Daniel," I said quietly. "You watched your mother throw me out." He sighed heavily. "You know how she is." My chest tightened with anger. "So that makes it okay?" "Amara, listen," he said quickly. "Mom was just upset. If you come back, we can fix things." Before I could answer, a voice shouted in the background. "His mother. Is that woman?" Tell her she better not come crawling back. I closed my eyes. There it was. The truth. Daniel lowered his voice. Just ignore her. Come home. Home. I repeated. Yes. I glanced across the table. Jae-min was watching me quietly. I don't think I will, I said. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not coming back. There was a long silence. Then Daniel spoke again. Where are you staying? With someone who actually cares if I'm okay. His tone changed instantly. Who? That's none of your business. I hung up before he could respond. For a moment, I just sat there staring at my phone. Are you all right? Jae-min asked. I think so. You handled that well. I sighed. It doesn't feel like it. Ending toxic relationships rarely feels good, he said calmly. You sound like you've done it before. He gave a faint smile. Many times. Later that afternoon, I was walking through the garden when I noticed something unusual. Several black cars pulled up near the gate. Men in dark suits stepped out. They moved with quiet precision, almost like soldiers. Curious, I walked closer to the window inside the house. One of the men approached Jae-min. Sir, the shipment arrived safely. Good, Jae-min replied. Another man handed him a folder. However, there was a small problem. What kind of problem? One of the rival groups tried to intercept the trucks. My stomach dropped. Rival groups? Intercept trucks? That didn't sound like normal business. Jae-min's expression hardened. And they've been dealt with. I suddenly felt like I was watching something I wasn't supposed to see. Before I could step away, Jae-min looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he gestured for the men to leave. A few minutes later, he entered the living room where I was standing. You heard that conversation, he said calmly. It wasn't a question. Yes, I admitted. I took a deep breath. What exactly do you do, Jae-min? He studied my face carefully. Then he answered honestly. My business world has many layers. That sounds mysterious. It's meant to. I crossed my arms. Should I be worried? He shook his head. Not unless you plan on becoming my enemy. I raised an eyebrow. And if I did? A small smile appeared on his face. Then you would have bigger problems than a mother-in-law. Despite the seriousness of the conversation, I laughed. You're unbelievable. Possibly. That evening, my phone rang again. But this time it wasn't Daniel. It was his mother. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Yes. Her voice exploded through the phone. You shameless woman. I pulled the phone away from my ear. How dare you disappear like that? She continued. I didn't disappear, I said calmly. You threw me out. You think you can embarrass my family like this? I didn't embarrass anyone. You're probably staying with another man right now. I glanced across the room at Jae-min. He was pretending not to listen, but I could tell he heard every word. If I am, I said slowly, at least this one treats me with respect. She gasped dramatically. You see? I knew it. That baby isn't my son's. Something inside me finally snapped. Enough. I shouted. The room went quiet. For 2 years I tried to earn your respect, I said, my voice shaking with anger. But nothing was ever enough. You're a liar. No, I said firmly. You're just used to controlling everyone. There was a long pause. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. You better come back before things get worse for you. What does that mean? You'll see. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. Jae-min was already standing beside me. What did she say? I repeated the words. He frowned slightly. That sounded like a threat. Do you think she meant it? His eyes darkened. I never ignore threats. Just then, one of his security guards rushed into the room. "Sir, what is it? There's someone at the gate." "Who?" The guard hesitated. "Your guest's husband." My heart started pounding. Daniel was here. And judging by the look on Jae-Min's face, things were about to get complicated. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Daniel was outside the gate. Here. At Jae-Min's house. I looked at him nervously. What should I do? Jae-Min's expression was calm, but there was a sharpness in his eyes now. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I don't know." He nodded slightly. "Then let's start by hearing what he has to say." He turned toward the guard. "Bring him in." "Yes, sir." The guard left immediately. My palms felt sweaty. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" I asked quietly. Jae-Min looked at me. "You're not afraid of him, are you?" I shook my head. "No." "Good," he said calmly. "Because he should be the one feeling nervous." A few minutes later, the front doors opened. Daniel walked in. The moment he stepped inside, his eyes widened as he looked around the mansion. The marble floors, the massive chandelier, the expensive furniture. Then his eyes landed on me. "Amara," he said, rushing forward. But he stopped when he noticed Jae-Min standing beside me. Who is this?" Daniel asked. Jae-Min spoke before I could answer. "Kang Jae-Min." Daniel froze. I could see the recognition on his face. Even people who didn't follow business news had heard that name. His voice suddenly became cautious. "You're that Kang Jae-Min?" "That depends," Jae-Min said calmly. "On what? On who's asking?" Daniel cleared his throat nervously. "I'm Amara's husband." Jae-Min raised an eyebrow. "Interesting." Daniel turned to me quickly. "Amara, come on. Let's go home." The words hit me like a bad joke. "Home?" I repeated. "Yes," he said urgently. "Mom was just angry last night. She didn't mean it." I laughed bitterly. "She threw me out in the rain, Daniel." I know, he said quickly. "But families fight sometimes. Families don't abandon pregnant women." His face flushed. "Look, I'm here now, aren't I?" I folded my arms. "Why?" He hesitated. Because you're my wife." "No," I said quietly. "I was your wife when your mother called me a liar. I was your wife when she accused me of cheating. I was your wife when she threw my suitcase onto the street." My voice trembled slightly. "And you did nothing." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "You know how controlling she is. And you let her control your marriage." The room fell silent. Then Jae-Min spoke calmly. "I have a question." Daniel looked at him cautiously. "What? Why exactly did your mother accuse Amara of cheating?" Daniel shrugged uncomfortably. "She said the baby didn't look like me on the ultrasound." I blinked in disbelief. "That's ridiculous." Jae-Min nodded slightly. "It is." Then he added quietly, "Which makes me curious." "About what?" Daniel asked. "About why she was so determined to get rid of you." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Jae-Min looked toward one of his security men. "Bring the file." Within seconds, the guard returned with a folder. My stomach tightened. "What file?" I asked. Jae-Min handed it to Daniel. "Open it." Daniel flipped it open. As he read, his face slowly turned pale. What is this?" "Information," Jae-Min said calmly. "About your mother." Daniel looked up, confused. "My mother?" "Yes." He pointed to the documents. "Your mother has been secretly selling pieces of your family property for months." Daniel's eyes widened. "That's impossible." "It's very possible," Jae-Min replied. "Especially when someone needs money." "For what?" I asked quietly. Jae-Min's voice turned cold. "Gambling debts." The room went completely silent. Daniel stared at the papers. This can't be real. It is, Jae-Min said. And the reason she wanted Amara gone was simple. Why? Daniel whispered. Because once the baby is born, the family inheritance would legally pass to your child. Daniel slowly looked up at me. You mean, she thought the baby would take the money? Yes, Jae-Min said. So she created a story about cheating to push Amara out before that happened. My legs suddenly felt weak. All this time, I whispered. It wasn't about me. No, Jae-Min said gently. It was about greed. Daniel sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands. I can't believe this, he muttered. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, relief, sadness. Finally, Daniel looked up at me. I'm sorry, he said quietly. The words hung in the air. But something inside me had already changed. I wish you had believed me earlier, I said. So do I. He glanced at Jae-Min. Thank you, for helping her. Jae-Min nodded slightly. I helped someone who needed help. Daniel stood slowly. I think I need to deal with my mother. I didn't stop him. And I didn't follow. For the first time in 2 years, I felt free. 3 weeks later, the contractions started at midnight. Jae-Min, I shouted from the bedroom. He rushed in immediately. What's wrong? The baby, it's time. Within minutes we were in the car speeding toward the hospital. The entire drive, he kept glancing at me nervously. You're doing fine, he kept saying. I'm the one giving birth, I gasped. Why are you panicking? He actually laughed. I've handled billion-dollar negotiations calmly, but this is terrifying. Hours later, the doctor finally walked out with a smile. Congratulations, she said. You have a healthy baby boy. Tears filled my eyes. When the nurse placed my son in my arms, my heart felt like it might explode with love. Jae-Min stood beside the bed, staring at the baby in awe. He's strong, he said softly. The baby wrapped his tiny fingers around Jae-Min's hand. And for a moment, the powerful billionaire looked completely speechless. I smiled tiredly. Looks like he likes you. Jae-Min chuckled quietly. I think the feeling is mutual. Months later, life looked completely different. My son was healthy, peaceful, happy. Daniel eventually divorced his mother and apologized again, but by then I had already moved on. One evening, I sat in the garden watching the sunset while holding my baby. Jae-Min sat beside me. Do you ever think about that night? He asked. The rain. Yes. I smiled softly. All the time. If that message had reached your friend instead. I looked at him. We never would have met. He nodded. Fate works in strange ways. I looked down at my son sleeping peacefully in my arms. Then back at the man who had changed everything. Sometimes, I said quietly, the wrong message reaches exactly the right person. And for the first time in a long time, my story finally had a happy ending.